Hey folks, welcome back to Gaming Garbage, where we take a look at games, review and preview the ones that we can, chat about the gaming news in the industry, and stream for fun. Today we're going to be talking about a state of gaming, about why challenging games are, or why non-challenging games are challenging for the industry. And I want to talk about this because this first kicked off with somebody that I was talking with about Elden Ring, and it doesn't just pertain to Elden Ring, but it pertains to a lot of other games too. But he was expressing how difficult, like, the first boss is in, like, Elden Ring or, like, let's say Bloodborne or Dark Souls. And he was saying how games didn't have to be that hard. And it really kind of got me thinking about kind of how it's perceived, how gaming is kind of perceived today, and kind of what's happened from what gaming used to be. Because back when all games used to be hard on Nintendo, on Super Nintendo, on PlayStation 1, they all used to be difficult compared to what they are today. And going back to Elden Ring, or like some spots in God of War, or some other games, it's that used to be normal. Challenging used to be normal. Even some of the missions on, like, Modern Warfare 1, 2, or 3, which really weren't too long ago, that used to be normal. And so let's get into this. I think this is important to talk about because not only is it to help people's perspective on what gaming used to be, but also why we hate video games today. And I think this is part of the root of the problem. So go ahead and come along with me. We'll chat about this. Let me know what you think about it, or what your thoughts are. I would love to hear about it. And then, yeah, we'll have a little bit of things at the end of the channel, if I remember. I've been doing that lately, folks, of not necessarily chatting about certain things I say I'll chat about in a stream. But, boy, yeah, life has been pretty busy, and sometimes, too, it's hard to stay focused with what's going on in the background. But let's go ahead and get into this. So video games started as, like, way, way back in the 80s. And video games also were kind of like a training program for branches of the military of different governments. This is actually where Tetris came from. So Tetris was a reactionary game to help improve pilots with their reflexes. And so yeah, they would use Tetris as a tool to train pilots. And as kind of video games started becoming not as expensive or more available, we had these companies that worked on making a game console, like the Atari, right? We had the 26 and the 5200. We also had computers, so there were quite a few games on computers. And then we had the birth of, like, during that time, we had the real birth of the console. And we had, like, the NES and the Super Nintendo. We had the birth of the Game Boy. And then we also had the PlayStation 1, which was all 3D graphics. And this time was an amazing time to play video games, as there was just so much innovation and huge leaps and bounds compared to what we see today. And I'm kind of waiting for that again with, like, virtual reality, which I think would be cool. But all of these games, they had a certain level of challenge. Otherwise, they weren't fun, and they were boring. And it was normal to not even have cheat codes. Okay, it was normal to not even have save points. Like, we didn't have hard drives for our consoles back then. The N64 and the PlayStation 1, they had them. They had a memory card. But yeah, games were challenging, partly in the fact is that you had to devote hours to actually play through the game. Something that was nice with, like, Super Nintendo is that a lot of those games actually had a code that you could put in so that the game knew what level you were on and would drop you off in the level. But I mean, trying something 10 times in a video game today is absolutely freaking nothing compared to what it used to be like. I mean, you would try for. I remember I tried for like a year or 2 years trying to beat Robin Hood on the NES. I mean, it was insane, folks. And when I finally did it, I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, that's where my Saturdays and my Sundays went, was trying to beat that game. Same with like Super Mario Bros. 3. And oh my goodness, man. Yeah, hours and hours and hours. I mean, that's where kids started spending their time outside of school. And so yeah, if they weren't challenging, they weren't fun. And it was almost like a badge of honor. It was like, "Ooh, I've beaten that. I've done that." And like kids and even myself, I remember we'd talk about certain levels or we'd give some tips and advice, and there'd be bragging rights. If you had done something or fixed something, or completed something, and we'd kind of help each other out on trying to also beat that level. Have help. They'd help us figure it out or give some tips, and we'd also help our friends figure out stuff too in video games. And you don't even see that anymore. We kind of have YouTube, playthroughs and stuff, but it kind of helped create a community around video games. Games back then, they were also tedious, and there was definitely some of that, absolutely, and there were some aspects that were grindy too. Um, but the grind can kind of take over the challenging part, and so it can kind of just be grindy instead of actually challenging. And then too, there are games that can also be too hard. I remember as a kid, and even today, there are still games that are too hard for me, and I don't necessarily want to play them. Yet that doesn't make them bad games. And I do think we do need to realize that. So, understanding that games can be boring or not fun, they can be tedious and grindy instead of challenging, or they can be too challenging, is that there needs to be this sweet spot that's preferred, but that's still kind of different for everyone. And I think we're starting to cross different kind of generational um, levels of acceptance of challenging. Okay, we still have people in their 40s now that are playing video games that started like in the 80s and have worked through the decades. We also have people such as myself that started in the 90s, and then we have some that started in the 2000s or even 2010s. And so there's just different, and games have had a change and kind of an alteration through those 4 decades. And so we have different types of gamers. And so their level of challenge, for all of us, the level of challenge can be different for everybody. And the thing that has changed probably the most in the video game space is the microtransactions. And so instead of the challenge, we now have microtransactions that have taken over, and there's less and less substance to a game. There's less character development, there's less story, there's actually less content. In most cases, maybe the worlds got bigger, maybe the levels got bigger, but there's actually less stuff to do. And so instead, we have more of a grind, so that we're inclined to spend money. And this is how companies have kind of started doing this. And there's some iterations out there, but like the creation of the season pass, which was DLC. I remember that coming out. I was working for GameStop at the time. And it's like, DLC, downloadable content, what is that? And we had to like educate people what that was. But that was a risk for some companies because no one else was doing it yet. And like the first DLC was for Mech Assault Lone Wolf, I think. Man, that was a long time ago. That was on Xbox. But it did pick up steam as more people chose to buy it, as the numbers started to show, hey, people are willing to buy downloadable content so they can have more to the game that they like or enjoy. Let's all do it. And so we all had DLC pretty much from every major game. This turned into kind of the expectation of making DLC. So we had the creation of the season pass where you could just pay $40 or $50 and get all expansions. You just pay for them all up front, and that would actually save you money in the long run. And then this went into I think it was Team Fortress 2 where they started having hats that you could pay for. So again, it was a type of downloadable DLC, but it wasn't story, it wasn't extra characters, it wasn't guns, it was nothing like that. It was just you could buy a hat for like $1, maybe $2 or $3, and you could wear that on your character as you played. And that actually took off. They actually made the game free. Um, they made the game free on Steam and PC. And to me, that really kind of kicked it off. And then we've had a new type of microtransaction game where we had the Battle Pass, the creation of the Battle Pass, and this really came out of Fortnite. In my opinion, and that's really where it pretty much blew up, because after that we had the expansion of this arena style type of game. So we didn't even create stories really or content really anymore. It was just an arena with different textures and characters, and may the best person win. And so we had the change of level design, we have the change of enemies and game mechanics and all of this stuff, and it was all designed to help sell more microtransactions. And we got away from creating a focus to make the game more fun, or to make it more interesting of a story. See, it was no longer about the story or the characters that pulled you in, or even like the way you could play the game. It was now more about how can we sell you microtransactions? How can we sell you stuff? It also made it cheaper for the companies too, as they didn't have to make as much content, quote unquote. They could just make some shirts, hats, some armor sets, and a few guns, and shove it out there, and even just let you earn in-game currency so that you could buy more stuff. And so it really got away from the focus of a challenging game. And we also had the creation of multiplayer, where multiplayer 2, we used to just have the story, and we used just to have the characters in that story. And we got to the creation of multiplayer, where we could shove the internet through a console and let people play with each other, which was really cool. Okay, that's really what kicked off multiplayer, was Call of Duty, and maybe Medal of Honor, and maybe a few others. But like the ability of multiplayer had now shifted into consoles. And that was so incredibly fun. You could play with your friends. We also had split screen. And so then we had split screen and multiplayer online, which was like a duality. And then multiplayer slowly took over, as it probably made more money in the long run. And so split screen kind of like disappeared. And I'm really glad we still have split screen opportunities like Baldur's Gate 3, which is great. Which, by the way, if you're interested in that for Xbox, it is already out for PC and PlayStation 5, but Xbox is going to be coming later this year. And the Series S version will not have split screen. But the Xbox Series X will. So just keep that in mind. If you're excited for Baldur's Gate and to split screen. And so yeah, we got to this point in video games where microtransactions became necessary. Like, they didn't make a game. First it was kind of a choice, right? And first it was just DLC. And first it was just multiplayer with your buds. Well, it got into this type of thing where the idea of the season pass and the battle pass, and even just buying something cutesy for your character for $1 or $3, blew into this entire thing of microtransactions, even to the point now where in some games you have to pay to win, and you have to have these microtransactions to have an edge, even to further get ahead in the game or even progress forward in some cases. And in a lot of cases today, it's not even a story or with character development. to progress forward. It's just fighting other players. That's the story, right? That's the challenging part. I even saw that there's now a new type of holographic sight in Call of Duty 2. I think it's Warzone, and the only way to get it is to actually purchase it in a bundle. But what it does is instead of silhouetting the character or the other player with kind of this yellowish orangish silhouette, it is this deep defined red where they're not just silhouetted anymore. The entire player in the holographic sight is all red. I mean, from end to end, everything about about the player is now covered in this deeper, bright red contrast while you're looking through the sight. So it's really easy to see everybody. All you need to see is a foot or an arm or a butt sticking out, and you can tell that, hey, there's a character there. And so, again, the only way to get it is to pay. And so it's really pretty disgusting that we're getting to this point now where it's pay to win. And we also have models like Destiny 2 where the microtransactions have gotten so deep, is just like now, instead of buying the game, you buy the game in pieces. I mean, really, you buy the game in pieces with like 4 DLCs a year, and if you add all that up, it's like over $120 for all DLCs. There's also yearly expansions and like battle passes or mini DLCs, whatever you want to call them, or even types of game modes like Forged. Was a fun one back then. I enjoyed that while they had it, but then this gets to a nasty side of microtransactions too, is where you're paywalling parts of the game behind a paywall, and then the developers and the company can just take that away and then bring it back later for you to pay for a second or third time. And that really kind of gets disgusting. It's like, okay, I paid for it for this month or for this season or year, but now they're taking it away, and then when they bring it back, I got to pay for it again. That's really greedy and disgusting. And the focus has become this kind of business model in order for companies to make their money, and they've been doing it long enough where companies have now grown to a size where microtransactions are necessary to stay alive. And they can still make billions selling a video game to people, but instead they would rather sell a service and make tens of billions. Do you see what I'm getting at here? And so these companies have gotten big, and I think one of the best examples of this is Diablo 4, where Diablo 4 had over 9,000 people in the credits working on the game and its development and creation and everything, and Diablo 4 can't even get a 3 out of 5 stars, a 60%. They can't even get it up there. It's so microtransaction held, and the game too itself is not challenging until you get to the end game. It's so incredibly frustrating, and then you just get your butt raped out there, and you get utterly destroyed, and so it just becomes this grindy process of leveling up and blah blah blah. And I want to say, hey, Elden Ring was like that too. But at least you had story to continue to captivate your attention. You could still co-op with other people if you wanted to, which is nice, just like Diablo 4. And, being able to progress through a story and characters and kind of still have this exploration and wonder of stuff in the video game is nice, instead of just being stuck in a certain section in Diablo 4 or even in other games, just having to grind your life away. To just say, oh yeah, I gotta kill this. Okay, let's hurry up. Hey, if I do that, I can save 30 seconds, and that'll save me time. And hey, if I do this 25 more times, I'll have enough where I can level up and blah blah blah. You get what I'm saying? And so yeah, it's quit playing. It's quit becoming about the story and about the actual game as an experience, and more about the game as a service. And this is really what's killing games. And in these games where microtransactions are necessary to progress forward or to level up in the game, we have like gold rounds in World of Tanks. We have Diablo 4 Immortal with armor sets. We have pay-to-win blueprints like what was in Call of Duty Vanguard and what's also going to be in Modern Warfare 3 when it launches in November. And there's still much more of a focus on this multiplayer. And so many times they feel the same. Again, like we've kicked stuff off with like Fortnite or like with Team Fortress 2 or with some other multiplayer type of games. And you know, like what Call of Duty has become is these Modern Warfare types. They're just furthering creating more to keep Warzone going, to keep more content. Now, I think Warzone 2.0 in Al Mazrah is really good. That's probably the best map they've made, and it's fun. It's fun with friends. I don't think it's fun by yourself, because everybody dies, you know, and you learn you suck at the game compared to the 1%. And also DMZ is a fun new mode where you can fight NPCs instead of players. In most cases, there's a few players in there roaming around. But those game modes, they are fun with other players if you're into first-person shooters. But what we've gotten away from is it's now all about the battle pass, and the characters don't even exist. And this is what was frustrating too with Battlefield 2042, is they totally could have created an entire campaign to set the story, to set the mood, to set the characters, and instead I play these characters who technically have a backstory, but I really don't care because there's no substance there. I'm just some guy with a certain type of look with gear, and I got some certain abilities or whatever, and I can run around the field and the big wide open fields of Battlefield 2042, which luckily they've worked on fixing that, and they have a little bit, but it still needs some drastic improvement because the map design is even horrible. But it's all become about multiplayer. And you know, if that's what Battlefield is going to be, it used to be my favorite first-person shooter franchise, but if that's what it's going to be, I'd rather have it die. And a lot of people, I think, agree with me on that one because of the amount of players that are still playing Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 1 and Battlefield 5. People would rather play those games instead of actually playing Battlefield 2042. And then, you know, we also have the challenge getting away from story, getting away from exploration and discovery and just following a good book. You know, none of us probably really read books for fun anymore. But instead, like, the challenge has turned away from trying to complete a certain mission to now just multiplayer. And it's not fun unless you're good. And we used to have, like, co-op campaigns. Well, good grief, we don't really have that much anymore either. I'm trying to find some more with Shepard and with Lion here on the channel so that we can play some more games. Now, Lion and I have quite a few, but I'm also trying to find some more with Shepard, and it's hard. There's really not too many out there. And we each have our own different tastes, you know, and hey, that's all good and well. But I mean, the multiplayer as we know it today is just really lonely. I mean, let's be honest. Nobody talks, nobody cares. We're all competing. Even if we're on the same team, we're all competing to get the higher score, to do better than everybody else. We're not working with other people, right? We have to be the best, and then you're competing against an entirely different team on top of that, and so the competition, it gets in the way to make a community out of multiplayer, and unfortunately, multiplayer as a community group has just died. We don't have it. There aren't groups anymore. It's hard to find clans. I mean, it just doesn't really exist. And when new games come out, there's still not really groups or clans anymore either. I mean, that used to be common. But they've focused so much on creating this multiplayer for first-person shooters and for some other games too that it's all about the competition. And it's very lonely out there. When it's just competition, when you got to be at the top of the scoreboard, it's very lonely at the top, folks. And it's really hard to make friends that way too. And so this whole focus of the challenge being the multiplayer competition, the multiplayer taking over instead of actually having a story, or like co-op campaigns like Halo, it's now just degraded the community in gaming. There's a lot of Lone Ranger play, nobody talks again, it's lonely, there's a lack of friends, there's no more clans, there's less tournaments. The tournaments that do exist are smaller. I mean, this is the gaming industry that we have, folks. Regardless of what age you are, I want you to think about this. And to continue to think of where gaming is going to be. And so this whole thing that I've already talked about of games becoming more grindy instead of challenging, the story being replaced by multiplayer, the focus of microtransactions instead of just building a game as a product and now creating a game as a service, the focus of multiplayer and competition, it's led to worse quests, it's led to worse missions, or just a lack thereof. And even like the missions and side quests in like Dying Light 2 or Overwatch 2, or even in Saints Row. Good grief, man. I mean, they're horrible. It's nothing like Oblivion or Skyrim, or it's nothing like From Software games. It's nothing like the Uncharted series, okay? Or even like Assassin's Creed, like what that used to be. I mean, there was story incorporated with the missions, even the side stuff. And the side stuff is usually a little grindy. Yeah, we understand that. But now it's at a point where we don't even have missions anymore. And if we do, they're really horrible. Like finding shoes for somebody in the zombie apocalypse. Or proving that you're a hero over everybody else, and so you gotta bash everybody's face in. Or it's just filler content. It doesn't have a cohesiveness. Because again, there's no story spun together. And this all leads to stagnant games. And this is really what I want to talk about. And so the microtransactions, they control the design of the game. They control the resources that the devs have, too, and where they can allot them. And we're getting to a point, we are at a point where all of these games pretty much feel the same. It's also changed what the Season Pass was. Some of you may not even know what the Season Pass used to be. The size of these games, there used to be full of content. Now it's full of trackers that want to figure out what you're buying, how long you're looking at it, and all of that type of stuff, so that the company can make a more enticing game for more microtransactions. Again, it's not about the story, it's not about the game as a product, it's about the game as a service. I mean, good grief, when you have Jedi Survivor, that's 135 gigs. That's crazy. And then we have a game like Elden Ring, where the biggest file size at launch was 49.9. The whole game fits on the disc, folks. And that's a whole nother problem. I won't get into that one of this one, but we can't even have 2-gamed or 3-gamed disc, or I'm saying it wrong. We can't even have 2-disc or 3-disc games anymore because they don't want to make them. They just want to make the DLC, and DLC actually used to be cheaper than physical. Like, that used to be a thing, and now it's all the same price. And now physical is just kind of disappearing. We know that. They've been pushing to not have disk drive consoles now for 2 generations. Showing us, hey, it's okay, you don't need the disc. It's cheaper for us. It's like, then make a freaking good game then. And if it's a good game, I want a disc. Because then with a disc, you actually own it. You possess it. And so, yeah, we've also had the change of campaigns, or the lack thereof. They've increased the severity. The stagnating of games, of all of these things I've already talked about, it's also increased the severity of launch. These games are broken. They're delayed to death. I mean, some games are stuck in limbo. Like Good and Evil 2 is 15 years now. It's not uncommon for games to have 2 delays, or to have delays that are almost a year. Even Starfield. They took an additional 10 months to create Starfield. And yes, again, I understand the argument. I would rather have a delayed game that turns out really good. Excuse me, folks, I got the hiccups this morning. I would rather have a game that turns out really well and have it be delayed than have it be pushed out and it's not ready or buggy or game-breaking bugs and just all that kind of stuff. And I agree. I do agree. My problem comes when to where they're so focused, or the games are getting so big, or they're so focused on microtransactions, or there's just a lack of experience. We got to talk about that too. I'll get into that in a second, I hope, if I remember. But now we have games that are delayed all the time. It used to be, hey, this game is coming out at this time, and you can anticipate it, and it would come out, right? Well, now just about every single game is delayed. The good ones and the bad ones. There's barely any that are actually coming out on launch. And even still, when they do, they're still buggy. Or there's some things that are so buggy where the file disappears, the game freezes. There's a quest now you can't finish. And, there's this whole idea recently now with Starfield, Bugthesda, which I think is a clever name. But yeah, they have a lot of bugs, but I'm happily content with the state in which Starfield, another big innovative game, so far at least that I've played, it's their smoothest running, least buggy game they've made to date. And so, in those cases where it's delayed, it's worth the delay. And then we got other games that get delays and huge massive updates, and the game's dead before it even reaches 6 months. Think of that, folks. Gollum is a good example of this. They updated the game. Which I don't even understand why. It's a dead project. Nobody's going to play it. But yeah, they updated the game with a pretty big patch to try to fix things in the game. And maybe it fixed it a little bit. And I think, too, it's the same thing with Redfall. Yay. Or it's the same thing with Forspoken, where it's like, hey, the game is totally done. But we're going to continue to make DLC for it. And we have these games that are just horrible. They're not fun. They're stale. And let's be honest, a lot of these have been stale for a long time. But these games, they're becoming stagnant. It's almost like people don't know how to make good games anymore. And we still have, on top of the delays, we still have the push and creation of stores for these microtransactions. And they always work flawlessly every freaking time, don't they, folks? The focus of cosmetics. And even in Destiny 2, where they're making cosmetics ugly that are free or cheap. And then the expensive ones, they're the ones that actually look kind of cool. Same with your guns, same with your boots, same with your glider, your car, or whatever. Is that and then they're even taking stuff out of a game and then paywalling it. Like in Grand Theft Auto 5, they took 200 cars out of the game and put them behind a paywall subscription service. That is freaking gross. There's also a lack of experiences. Again, these just grindy missions. Or just, hey, go here, collect this. Move that. Put that over there. Go over here and push this button. And then, yeah, you know, again, like I said with Grand Theft Auto 5, what was free is now paywalled. And Madden 2, we get repeats of the same games. The games aren't different, they have a different number in front of them. But it's the same game. And Madden right now is a really good example of Madden 22, Madden 23, Madden 24. They don't improve anything. They don't fix stuff. They maybe make some tweaks for the next game, but, you know, they're putting out a game every 12 months. They don't have time to fix that. And even watching some of the stuff on Madden 24 right now, luckily there's no NFTs. I was wrong about that one. Oh, yeah, dude. Whoa, we haven't even talked about that yet. We probably won't. But, like, people that are huge Madden fans are like, this is the same freaking broken game. Why am I even playing this? I'm wasting my money. And so these stagnant games, you know, it shows that the passion is gone. And this is why I was so excited for Starfield, and I still am. I am just woohoo for Starfield, folks. And I'm excited too for Baldur's Gate 3. I'm excited for Lords of the Fallen, which is Hexworks' first project they've ever built. So I'm excited to see what Hexworks has done with Lords of the Fallen reboot. But, like, the passion is missing in a lot of games of what made franchises really good. Also, there's more remakes and remasters now and re-releases and DLCs now. This is so disgusting, but even DLCs now becoming full games so that you can pay more money. Like Modern Warfare 3, that was supposed to be DLC for Modern Warfare 2. And we also have Assassin's Creed Mirage was supposed to be DLC for Assassin's Creed Valhalla. And we're probably going to see more re-releases. It's like, hey, we're looking at remastering probably The Last of Us 2 again, even though it's only been 3 years. It's like you're remastering a 3-year-old game. Are you serious? Now, there isn't direct confirmation on that yet. But, I mean, what about The Last of Us 3? Or The Last of Us 4? Or how about even in Kingdom Hearts? I love the story of Kingdom Hearts, but there are multiple iterations of the game, like Rechain of Memories, where you are replaying the same game. No change of graphics, no change of gameplay, no change of bosses, except maybe a couple trickled in there when you get toward the middle and the end of the game. But I mean, it's the same flippin' game, folks. That freaking pissed me off. I couldn't even believe that. It's like, I paid $60 for a game where I'm replaying the first Kingdom Hearts 1. I'm rechaining, quote-unquote, all of my memories. So there's some different cutscenes, you know, and some girl in a lotus flower. Congratulations to Japanese game. That makes sense. But it's just like, yeah. Man, that was just gross. It really kind of killed my joy for Kingdom Hearts. And I played the third one, and it's just, and again, it's like, meh. The spark and the passion just feels kind of gone from the game compared to the first one. And yeah, it's sad to think about. And we have re-releases like, oh, you know, the Metal Gear Solid collection. It's the old HD versions from 10 years ago. They're not redoing anything. They're just putting them in a package and calling it Metal Gear Collection Volume 1. And that's what we're going to get. And to me, that's not necessarily worth $60. We're also going to get Red Dead Redemption 1 with Undead Nightmare. But all the other DLCs are going to be left out. And the frame rate, the game actually runs worse on newer gen consoles like the Switch. Red Dead Redemption came out like 15 years ago. It's an old game. Or maybe more like 10 years ago, but you're telling me it can't run on Switch very well? Really? And they didn't do anything different. They're just relaunching the game. And then you can still get this 360 Game of the Year edition for $30 with all of the DLC. And it's like companies are just trying to cheat us out of our money. It's gross. We got another game that has been a total scam, in my opinion, coming out called, I think it's called The Day Before. And at first I was really excited about this. But I mean, the development of this game has just been super sketchy. And I don't think it's going to be good quality. I really don't. It's supposed to launch this November. And this game has also been delayed a lot too. But yeah, the passion is missing. We have so many now remakes and remasters and re-releases and DLCs becoming full games. It's all now more common than actually making a good game. And the game is incentivized. The games are now designed to keep you playing. Incentivizing you to keep playing. Again, more grind instead of challenge. And this is what live service has become. And so, in my opinion, challenging games, they're not desired anymore. Because if you're too frustrated, you're not going to spend money. And if you don't feel like you're progressing forward, you're not going to keep playing. Or if the progressing forward stops because you're at the end, you're also not going to play anymore. And so, live service has become this unending rat race. This maze, just to keep you collecting stuff and shoving them in your walk-in closet. With 95% of that stuff you're never gonna wear. Now in a game like Sea of Thieves, where you can work to earn stuff in the game, I think that's great. Games where you have to pay for it, like Diablo 4, that's flippin' disgusting. Or you gotta grind 8 months to get a skin for one character in Overwatch 2. Like, we need to quit paying for this stuff. We need to stop assuming that, oh, hey, this franchise back in the day, oh, hey, this company back in the day made these great games. We need to actually see proof that these games are great. And I think with the failure of Redfall, Bethesda did a wonderful move on creating Starfield Direct. Because they can actually show the game, they can show some gameplay, they can have the heads of the departments talk about what their departments worked on and how they built things and kind of what their creative process was. And now we have Starfield. Is it a perfect game? No. But the game so far has been wonderful. I mean, it's Fallout 4 on steroids. And I really enjoy it. Again, I don't think it's for everybody. And just like Diablo isn't for everybody, Call of Duty Modern Warfare isn't for everybody, Diablo 4 isn't for everybody, etc. Elden Ring and From Software games aren't for everybody because they're extremely challenging, folks. I mean, some people are getting their first real taste at a From Software game with Armored Core 6 Fires of the Rubicon. And they're getting Rubiconed all over the floor out there. And, oh man. Like, yeah, but that's the games that they make. Because when you finally beat the game, when you finally beat the boss, the euphoric satisfaction is incredible. And I just think there are gamers out there that don't know what that feels like. Because they've never done it before. Even playing through Dark Souls 1 with Lion. That's an accomplishment. I got my participation trophy on the mantle that Lion made for me, which is so cool. The campaign that Shepard and I played on World at War, working through that whole campaign, it's like, man, that was awesome. We did it. That's so difficult. That's incredible. That's awesome. So, next, we're going to play some Black Ops 3. We're going to probably do some zombie stuff. And we're probably going to work through the Halos too. But like that deep satisfaction, that joy, that, I did it. I worked through something so challenging and difficult, and I didn't quit, and now I've accomplished that. And it's the same thing in real life, folks. It really is. But so many people, I think, are afraid of the work. And so they have nothing. Their life isn't really doing anything. They're just kind of there. So yeah, don't be afraid of the work, folks. Because if you can beat the challenge in a video game, man, when you beat the challenge that you have in front of you in life, oh my goodness. Yeah, if you think that beating the challenge in video games is a euphoric satisfaction and joy, just wait until you beat the obstacle that you're dealing with. It's amazing. Yeah, it's undescribable. So don't quit on yourself. Keep growing. And so yeah, these games are designed to keep you playing. They don't want them to be challenging. And yeah, these challenging games, they create a level of satisfaction that can't be felt in live service. Because again, it's not desired for live service games to be challenging. That's why we have the grind instead. And see, these companies, they've figured all of this out already. Over a decade ago. That's why these changes have been happening, in my opinion, is they know how to keep us playing so that we keep buying. And they've done all of this research. We have all of these reports and data stores and mass data. And still, I think that's why some of these games are so big, is because they're still collecting data on us. Because, yeah, some of these games, it doesn't make any sense why they're so large. But yeah, the exploration, the story, the characters, the experiences in these wonderful games are satisfying. Like Elden Ring, Hogwarts Legacy, Tears of the Kingdom, God of War 2, Starfield, Baldur's Gate 3. Lords of the Fallen is going to be another one. The Dead Space remake was another great one. But they're not live service games. And live service is killing the industry. If I haven't proved that yet in this kind of messy presentation of the challenge of non-challenging games or unchallenging games, then I just don't think people are listening. I don't think they're quite understanding what myself and what the Angry Joe show and Young Yeah and the Act Man, what we're trying to say. Because, yeah, games used to be a blast. I mean, they were a hobby. They weren't a participation trophy. Look at my gold gun. Look at my suit of armor. Look at my whatever. And it's honestly what killed World of Warcraft. Is now you could just pay for stuff. And people that have grinded for decades to get where they are today, it's a slap in the face. It's to show, yeah, you have these other people that have stolen glory by being able to pay their way to where you are in like a tenth of the time. And so, yeah, players quit. Also, the DLC wasn't good. The expansions weren't good. The changes they were making to focus more on microtransactions wasn't good. And this isn't just, it hasn't been just a World of Warcraft. This is a industrial problem. And so my closing thoughts, folks, and these aren't in any particular order. So yeah, my closing thoughts. If you can't handle a challenging game or something in a game, I mean, there's no way you're ready for real life. And all of us have to live real life, you know. But I mean, if you're unable to persist through a video game, or games have to be rewarding instantly, I would probably put it that way. If you have to have immediate satisfaction, there's going to be certain aspects of life you'll never obtain. And the reason for that is because it takes so much more work and endurance and discipline to actually get there. So being married, being a good parent, and developing children into adults, having a career job where you can be paid $25, $40 an hour to actually earn enough to be out on your own. Being able to have a network of friends that will come and help you at the drop of a hat when stuff absolutely hits the fan. And it will, folks. And I can count on one hand, maybe two, where I can call people right now and say, hey, I am in major trouble. I need help. Can you come help me? And people will be here. Those are the kind of friends that I strive for. Those are the ones I want. But you also got to be able to do that too. Because we live in a world where it's just take. There is no more giving. And honestly, as a generation, we are weak. We don't know how to live. We don't know how to move forward. We don't know how to progress in life, and so one example, we have hobbies like video games where we sink so much time into. So yeah, work on yourself. Again, if a boss is challenging in a video game and you quit, there is something to be said too of like the value of your time. But I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say, is that if you chronically have to win, or you chronically quit games because they're too hard, boy, take time to level up, folks. Level up your real self. Because yeah, again, if you can't do that in the video game world, you certainly won't be able to do that in the real one. And I love chatting with folks too, and trying to invest in their lives, and that's partly what this channel is for. And yeah, this right here, it's a piece of advice. Focus on growing. Focus on increasing your discipline and your endurance, your mental fortitude. Work on your body too. Quit being fat. I mean, if there's something you want to change about yourself, start the challenging journey of improving yourself as a person. And I don't know who you guys are, but I still care. And maybe every once in a while someone hears a piece of advice that helps their lives. That's all I'm hoping for. But there's so many of us that are lonely, that are tired, that are just kind of giving up. I mean, we're not quiet quitting just at the job. We're quiet quitting on ourselves and our lives of what they could be. So please don't quit. And if there's something you dislike about yourself or your lifestyle or how you live, then change it. Come up with a plan. Talk to somebody face to face that cares about you, that loves you. Talk to them and get that figured out. Come up with a plan to actually accomplish that goal. And if you don't have anybody, you can talk to me. We can have a private conversation. And yeah, I'll be that support system for you right here on the channel. And it's not going to be streamed. No, I'm talking like party chat or like a phone call or like texting or whatever. But focus on the growth, folks. Because yeah, games are one thing, but man, life is totally something else. And I want everybody to enjoy the things that I have in my life, because they're all worth it. And so yeah, back to closing thoughts. So yeah, the challenging, not being able to handle challenging games, we start to think that if I can't beat it or I can't do it, well then it's really we kind of come up with ways to think of why it's less important to accomplish. And so then, therefore, we're also more likely to quit, including ourselves. And I think this is why, too, people don't really like themselves as a person. And so they quit on themselves. They don't try to do anything. But yeah, build up your endurance, your capacity, and your will to keep going, your determination. Keep building that up. My next thought is, I believe we'll see a bigger rift between campaign games versus monetized live service. And I do think campaign games will return, as they have been. And campaign games are going to ultimately win again. Because again, all of this stuff we talked about with the challenge of non-challenging games, the pay to win, the lack of story, the lack of character development, the lack of stuff to do, the empty DLC and lack of content, lack of real content, the fact that a lot of games don't even have passion anymore. I mean, the studios that understand, like Larian Studios that made Baldur's Gate 3, or like the studio that made Hogwarts Legacy, they understand. And these campaign games, they're amazing. They're incredible. They're what we want. And they're listening and paying attention. And so these are the studios that you should focus on. But we've also lost franchises too. So let me read some. Oh yeah, this is a hard list for me to read. Rainbow Six, Far Cry, Call of Duty, Overwatch, Diablo, GTA, Assassin's Creed, Saints Row, Gran Turismo, Destiny, Halo, Madden, NBA 2K, Borderlands, Battlefield, Need for Speed, Star Wars Battlefront, Resident Evil, the remake. We've lost those, folks, because the microtransactions and the monetization has helped the devs focus on making an inferior game, creating the grind just to keep you spending money. That's the goal. And I don't know if those franchises are ever going to come back. Another thing, too, is companies need to see long-term pain, probably years, or even to the point of bankruptcy, before things change. And so another big reason why we have this channel is called Gaming Garbage, because gaming is garbage. And these aren't just a few studios anymore doing these type of things that we've talked about. It's a ton of them. It's all of the big mainstream ones. And so it's going to take a recession. It's going to take time to apply pain, but the recession can help speed things up. And we're already seeing a dismantling of several studios, which I think that pain is necessary to say, hey, you made a game that's horrible, you're done. I think, too, we need to see some of these big companies, they need to go bankrupt. I'm hoping, too, with Activision Blizzard, that with under the puppetry of Microsoft, that we can get to a point where Activision Blizzard can make good games again. So choose carefully what you buy. Use your money to vote, and continue to do so. Because these companies, they're not interested in making games anymore. They're making cosmetics. They're making ways for you to gamble. They're making more ways for you to grind for stuff in the store, and more things to buy to fill up your digital closet. I'm serious. Think of the amount of things that you've purchased that just sit there. You never use it. Even in the real world too, folks. Think of the amount of stuff that you own that you'd never use. I'm talking years or even a decade now, where it just sits there. I mean, isn't that wasted money? Think if you could actually put that money towards something else that you'd like to buy right now, or an experience or vacation you'd like to have. I think of the guy that can't buy Starfield because he doesn't have enough money. I got a friend right now. A buddy. It's like, dude, Save your money. He's just not disciplined enough. That's his problem. So he's playing World of Tanks instead of Starfield. Ouch. That sucks. And he really wants to play Starfield. But yeah, he's not disciplined enough to have enough money to do so. Another thought is that they'll make video games for the whales. Like Diablo Immortal. It made $500 million in like 7 months from release. And that's a mobile game. But we're going to have games made for the whales. If you don't know what a whale is, it's a person that has a lot of money that they can dump into a game. And so Counter-Strike Go is a good example of this. I mean, $400,000 or $1 million for like a knife or a gun skin. I can't even wrap my head around that, folks. Yeah. Yeah, I can't even process that. And then also Destiny. I know of people that spend thousands of dollars, maybe even almost $10,000 on currency and anything and everything they could buy in the game for playing a decade of Destiny. You know, like $1,000 a year. Oh, that's so painful. And then Destiny is in the state it's in, and honestly, I think Destiny's on its way out. I think they're going to focus on Marathon. And I think the future content of Destiny is just, it's going to be bad after the final shape. And then, yeah, I already mentioned Diablo Immortal. And so if they continue to make games for the whales because they can make more money, well, they're not going to make games for the little guys like us, for the masses. And so I'm afraid of this too, where companies will no longer focus on the mass. They will focus on those that have the most money. And so then we don't even get to touch the game. We can buy it, probably, and play it, but we can't get anywhere. Again, because it's for the whales. And I really hope this doesn't happen. My last closing thought is that, folks, this is why it's necessary to become disciplined. To be able to say no. To be able to conquer your emotions, because these gaming companies, EA, Ubisoft, Activision, Blizzard, Square Enix, etc., they have sold you on the emotional and chemical high of collecting instead of having fun in a game. I really want that to sink in, because that's what's happening. And too, with the competition games of multiplayer like Fortnite and Warzone, they have sold you on, quote, you being good at something, when really it doesn't matter at all in life. You got a collection of digital titles and digital stuff that you can't hold in your hand, you can't hang on your wall, and at the end of the day, nobody cares. Because they're competing with you, just like competing with everybody else. And so it's lonely, folks. But don't get addicted to the emotional and chemical high of thinking you're accomplishing something in a game. Because to people like me, you're just kids. You're not an adult. You're legally an adult, but you're still immature. You think the title of something is cool. You think your golden gun is worth the squeeze. I mean, yeah. In reality, real adults that are living their real lives and actually enjoy their real life, I mean, we think you're a joke. And if all you can win at is some video game, man, yeah, growth has to happen. You have to grow and mature some more. And I do mean that to be a little stiff, a little rough to hear. But I want you people to realize, whichever ones you are listening, that if you're not growing, if you're not maturing, you can't level up. You gotta go through the pain, baby. And it's time to start doing that. Because there's so many more wonderful, amazing things in the real world than the gaming space can ever make. Life can be so much more satisfying than any gaming experience. And I'm living it. And I want all of you listening to be able to live that too. So folks, thanks for joining the channel. Thanks for listening. Hopefully you guys are having a good time. We got another hurricane, it looks like, heading its way toward Florida, toward the Carolinas. So again, prepare again. I heard too, for those of you that live over there, is that insurance companies are starting to remove natural disasters from being covered with insurance claims for homes and cars, primarily homes. So, for those of you that live on the East Coast, just be aware of that. And in the Gulf, is that it's becoming too expensive to cover all of these homes, all of this stuff. And I want you guys to be able to, plan now. Or make some life-changing decisions to maybe move or to sell or to get to a different place in your state to where you can still be closer to family. But yeah, I mean, I think the storm is Lee. I'd have to look it up again. There's been so many storms I've been tracking. But yeah, it looks like it kind of is headed for Florida. If it stays on the same path, it's going to hit Florida and the Carolinas again. And I just want you people to be safe out there, to be aware of what's going on. Also, too, you can always like and sub for Twitch. You can find me over at Don't Tread on Thee. That's when I don't really have a schedule. I just stream when I can, and then I get it uploaded to YouTube. And then over on YouTube, I'm at Gaming Garbage 22. If you do enjoy Starfield, I do have some Starfield hats that I'm selling. So the hat is gray with a Constellation logo in the front and Gaming Garbage on the back. If you're curious what that looks like, I have pictures posted on my community tab on YouTube. And just scroll down a little bit and you'll see them. If you're interested, they're $29 plus shipping. And we'll be using Pirate Ship so that we can have the cheapest shipping cost that we can. Because I'm trying to keep it as cheap as I can for you folks. And these hats, I'm not making money on them. I mean, I made $29.50 a hat and I'm selling them for $29. So I just want to offer the opportunity. Because right now there really isn't anything Starfield related. And I'm kind of shocked. So, I got a few hats. If you're interested, let me know. You can contact me via Whisper on Twitch, or you can contact me at gaminggarbage22@gmail.com. Also, things have been pretty busy. I got a off the cuff to do. Thank you for voting, but I think we're going to have kind of like a bye week. And then my wife and I were still doing It Takes Two. We're going to do another one as soon as we can. Lion and I, we've been having server issues with Wildlands, so we're waiting for that to clear up so that we can actually do another one. And then Shepard and I have had trouble getting together, and so yeah, we'll start Black Ops 3 when we can on Realistic. And we hope you'll join us for those. So until next time, we'll see you on the next one.